Okay, 50 and 50, I'm back again. And I think, look, under extraordinary circumstances, I put this series of vlogs together and videos together and blogs around animal health for 50 days. Because I thought 50 days would be a long period of time and things would start slowly improving. Now, they haven't improved maybe as quick as everyone wants, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. And I think it's about putting out best practice and huge thanks for the support from Netix, Progen and Menco and helping me put these together. But right now we're learning a lot of lessons because of the current crisis about how disease spreads, about the importance of hand hygiene, about keeping our distance from each other to prevent the virus spreading from one person to the next. And I think when that is in people's minds and focus, we must apply some of those principles to our farms. Because one of the challenges with animal health is the reduction of infectious disease and to stopping the spread of infectious disease on our farms. So there's lessons for farming, for the stuff that we're learning all about now, that's becoming really part of our conscious. And I think when we think about infectious disease, the visible disease we see is mastitis, pneumonia, lameness in sheep. That's where we can see infectious disease. At that stage though, it's taking effect and it's doing its damage. But what we want to get better at is understanding the invisible spread. And this is a challenge for us as humans as well. We don't see coronavirus spreading. It can be really hard to see why all these protocols are important when you don't see the enemy as such. But subclinical animals are a challenge for invisible spread. They carry disease and can spread it from farm to farm. And that's how a lot of our infectious diseases move from farm. And the idea of a closed flock or a closed herd is so important. But the environmental spread is really important in farm. And we must make sure that we take what we learn now, take what we know about infectious disease and continually apply it to our own farms. It can reduce down antibiotics, reduce down sickness. It can improve overall animal health, and that's where we need to be. Just remember the seesaw principle, and I've mentioned this many times in the blogs, is it's a balance between immunity and infection pressure when we look at infectious disease. We want to maximise up immunity. We do that with colostrum, nutrition, minerals, vaccines, reducing stress, good feeding that's suitable for the production outputs of the animal. On the other side, we want to reduce down infection pressure. That's the amount of virus, bacteria, fungus that's in the environment. Because no matter how good immunity is, we always have that threshold where there's too much of a virus or too much of a bacteria that overwhelms the immune system. So we're always battling there. So on this side of the thing comes in hygiene. How do we apply hygiene on a farm? And so where are some examples? I've been known to use glitter to show how calf scour spreads. And 100 ounces of cryptosporidium ingested by a calf can produce 1 billion out the back. You've that multiplication effect. So these visible animals are the source of infection. These subclinical animals can be the source of infection. And that's why we talk about diagnostics, to try and identify the spread of infectious disease. We're learning now about diagnostics, about people who don't have symptoms but might have antibodies. And they can shed or spread disease. In a population, just like we're learning, the importance of knowing who's infected and who's not can help to spread. We know about this on farm because we've been applying these principles for years. But with calf scour, when you can't see it, it's very hard to visualize that spread. So I've just used glitter in the past, and suddenly you see this glitter appearing all over the farm, and you start thinking about, oh, it's on the feeding equipment, it's on my boots. And one farmer said to me he really got it when he went into the kitchen and it was on his hands. It just made him think about how disease spreads in farm. And I think that's an important message because 60% of all our infectious disease in humans comes from animals. There's zoonosis. Now that's a wide range across wildlife, animals, pets, everything. Vectors spreading disease. But you must be very mindful of this for ourselves and farm. Good personal hygiene reduces the risk for us picking up zoonotic diseases like leptospirosis in cows. We do that by vaccination as well. That's why vaccines work in our herds to increase immunity and decrease the risk. But use lambing with abortion agents. Salmonella, cryptosporidium, as I mentioned earlier, can be zoonotic and picked up by humans. So we need to be very mindful of our own personal hygiene, wearing gloves when treating sick animals. And we know then the spread of disease within animals. If we can focus in on hygiene, we reduce the risk and we're stopping the spread on our farms. Young ruminants like lambs and calves in particular is where we really need to focus on hygiene. We have large numbers of them coming together in seasonal calving and lambing systems, and we're doing that indoors. And we must be very mindful with large numbers of immunonaive animals. while we want to maximise, optimise colostrum and get the best results we can, really do a good job on that. These animals are still, during a period of their lives, they're going to be more susceptible to infection. And the way we can reduce that risk down in one part of it is good hygiene. You've heard me mention that right throughout the sheep and beef and dairy videos I've done. So bedding, a clean lie, a clean bed. Fresh air itself contains a thing called ozone, which actually acts as a natural disinfectant. So fresh air is a disinfectant, it's part of the hygiene story. Feeding equipment with calves, regularly cleaning feeding equipment, making this easy for yourself. Water can spread disease. How clean are our water troughs? What's drainage like on the farm? These are all relating to hygiene. Navels in animals, navels in lambs, navels in calves. That's why we dress or disinfect the navel, to prevent infection going in that tube, which is linked right into the liver. Stomach tubes are an interesting one, particularly in calves. If we think about calf scar, are we treating a sick animal and then stomach tubing, maybe a healthy animal that needs colostrum, or are we potentially any utensils we're using, any routine procedures like wringing lambs? Are we spreading infection? We just need to think about how we can stop the spread in our own farms. SOPs, standard operating procedures, not a very exciting word, but having systems in place to clean sheds, having sheds set up to make it easy to do this, all in out, all out system, keeping batches of animals together. Principles we need to get better at all the time. If you look at housing, the bedding, as I said earlier on, but space. Why do we get more disease inside? We're all learning about the 2 meter distance. If we have animals in very close confinement with poor air supply, the like of spread of respiratory pathogens is really high. If we have a wet, damp environment with sheep or cattle, we're going to spread disease or infection that way. And again, I said fresh air. It's nature's natural disinfectant. Indoors, we've really got to optimize that and get as much fresh air in animals without causing drafts, and that can be done. Again, for cows, looking at cubicle, bedding, all that type of thing can reduce down infection. One disease I do a lot of work with is mastitis, and there's a huge focus on mastitis in hygiene. The milking routine, remembering if we look at somatic cell count, and I've covered them, that we're spreading it between cows, and we're often the ones spreading it, or the machine can be spreading it. So cleanliness of our own hands, milk your hygiene, and the routine itself from clinical mastitis. So a lot of times these bacteria are coming from the environment. So how clean are cows? Where are cows lying down? Really simple things when it comes to mastitis. And that's my Other Things program. It's really, really simple. But it applies a lot of those rules about reducing down infection pressure. Foot baths, another great example of reducing the spread of infection. Very debatable how good they are at treating infections, but really at reducing down the spread of infection. They play a key role in infectious lameness, particularly in sheep and so on cattle. If we look at quarantine, anyone coming into our farms, particularly animals, should we be foot bathing them? How can we reduce down the levels of infection that they're bringing in? An active disinfectant point on your farm sends a clear message about how you think about hygiene to the person like me coming into your farm with my boots, with my equipment, that I'm going to be clean. I'm not going to risk the introduction of spread disease in your farm. It sends out important messages about our mindset on hygiene. So keeping disease out of our farms, really important. Biosecurity, again, the risk, as I said, is with animals mostly, but we have that active disinfectant point. And if we have an infectious disease outbreak, a visible infectious disease, how do we stop spread to other animals? These are all key things. So there's lessons we're all learning about hygiene at the moment that we naturally apply to our farm, but we can all do a little bit better. I suppose one job I would give farmers now at this time of year is your calves are out, your lambs are out, and really it's a time to clean out sheds and look at stopping the spread from year to year. If you look at some of our parasites like Coccidia and Cryptosporidium, they can survive a long time in the environment. Deep cleaning, power hosing out sheds, steam cleaning and an appropriate disinfectant over 3 days, each step over 3 days, and I've talked about it before, and allowing those sheds rest time between seasons, and a job we can do over the summer. So hygiene plays a key role. I think my thought for today, I'm doing a thought for today every day, and this is one of the last of the thoughts, is there's lessons for us everywhere. We've got to open our eyes and see what's happening and listen. So listen and think about what we're being told about coronavirus. Think about how important hygiene is. Think about how important space is. And apply that learning to these invisible diseases that we can't see. hygiene's just part of it. If you look at diagnostics, you look at all this area over here. But when we start putting these things together on our farms, we start making a significant difference. Healthy animals are more profitable, productive animals. And that's the key message. Happy, safe farming, and let's continue to stop the spread.